This is the story of an island, Gabriola. A sandstone and granite rock, a forest surrounded by the Salish Sea. Gabriola is a jewel in the necklace of British Columbia's stunning Gulf Islands. Because of its raw beauty and unique geography, those living here relate to the land in very different ways.
So land to us is sacred.
I truly do find sanctuary here.
It makes me feel humble, small, but alive.
It's wonderful to see so many different people participating.
The land provides me with my life. It's a living, breathing, cyclical entity that nourishes us.
The earliest islanders to have a relationship with this land, going back thousands of years, are the Sunemu, a Coast Salish people. Theirs is a sacred, cultural, and life-affirming relationship.
Today we are standing on the traditional lands of Sunemu, and it's an honor that I am here today to share a bit about the history of this beautiful land here on Gabriola Island. There is so much rich history of the island. So many archaeological sites here on the island, petroglyph sites and the meaning of them. The old people lived here. There were houses here that along the beach here where they came and they lived. They lived here because of the shellfish, to the hunting, to the fishing. The main food sources at the time over here were the herring, the camas, the clams, the cod, the salmon, the seals, the sea lions.
Gabriola Island went through a radical transformation following the 1860 Land Act. The land was partitioned into approximately 100 lots of up to 160 acres each that only British subjects could own and develop. The Sunemu people were granted several small reserves, but could not apply to own the land here that they'd lived on for generations. With these land preemptions and a continuous stream of settlers, Gabriola Island changed from a harvesting culture to a farming community. Instead of gathering wild foods when they were in season, as the Sunemu did, the farmers who followed planted and harvested crops to grow a year's supply of food. Gabriola has only a few small pockets of good soil for farming. Most of the island is comprised of thin layers of sandstone covered by dense growths of fir, cedar, and hemlock that first had to be logged to create farms. Despite the challenge of rocky, marginal soil, the Rollo family in the 1890s, like many others, tended large vegetable gardens, planted orchards, and kept chickens. Getting produce and livestock off the island to sell was often difficult. Livestock could swim to nearby islands, but getting food to the coal miners in Nanaimo required a boat or barge. Transportation to and from Gabriola was easier once the Lady Rose made regular deliveries and pickups at Silva Bay. Robert Gray was one of the first European settlers on Gabriola in the 1850s. His grandson, Robert Dorby Gray, was, by the 1930s, raising cattle, sheep, and poultry. Today, the Gray farm is still active, raising sheep for wool and meat. And it is believed to be the oldest BC farm continuously operated by the same family. Cattle rancher George Bolton moved his young family from Alberta to Gabriola in 1948. Bolton's son Eric and his family are still raising beef, pork, and poultry for the island, and his granddaughter Alexa operates the island's only abattoir. Their Somerset farm was one of the few farms large enough to survive as a commercial enterprise. The desire to get back to the land is an enduring dream. By the 1960s and 70s, waves of young families and hippies were coming to Gabriola. Small lots were now affordable for young families wanting to grow wholesome food and live in a rural setting. By the 1990s, the small-scale, farm-to-market idea was once again taking hold. One enterprising couple, Roisin Holland and Bob Shields, were the first on Gabriola to return to the market garden idea, selling organic vegetables to the local community.
So that's 4, 5, 6, 7. 6 this morning. Not too bad. 5:55 to be exact. And then I don't really get going till 7. Ooh, look at all the customers. Lots of people in there buying cauliflower. And beetroots and lettuce.
What's your favorite part of a morning like this? Is it seeing the customers?
My favorite part is if I've got it all done the night before, and then I get it all put out in a nice calm fashion, and then I stand back and look at it and enjoy it, and then when all the people come and buy it, it's perhaps the best, because all your hard work has come to the conclusion. All the produce that you've spent months seeding, weeding, watering, and then finally cutting and harvesting, washing, bagging, and then putting on the table. So then when the customer comes to buy it, that's the high point. Because all of what's gone before would be totally wasted. All that energy and effort, if there wasn't somebody to buy it, you couldn't even begin. You would be so discouraged so quickly. So that's why we certainly advocate small farmers, small properties, so that small families can control the prices. The moment you have too much produce and you have to wholesale it, you do not have any control over the price anymore. So you're forced to sell it for half, a quarter, a fraction of what it's worth, which kills the farmer. Totally kills the farmer. So that has to be direct sales for the farmer to exist. And that's where small comes in. Thank you, Good Earth. Isn't that something else? Unbelievable. Beautiful.
Staying small as an entrepreneur also works for Margot and Fossey, a herbalist who harvests plants for their healing properties, turning them into organic lotions, medicines, and soaps.
My favorite part is actually going out and picking and drying and making the oils. So I like making the medicine. Dandelions. Herbs should only sit for maybe a year at the most in order for it to have the medicinal qualities. So when you buy things from a large company, they harvest all the herbs and dry it and package it. Now those packages could sit for quite a while before they're even shipped out. Just it's better to grow your own food, your own herbs, and if you don't do that, then buy them locally, buy them fresh. When we go out and harvest herbs, there's certain ways of harvesting and certain times to harvest as well. In the spring, the energetic properties go from the roots up into the leaves. In the fall, you harvest, and in the winter, you harvest the roots. The interesting thing about the nettles is that the roots, they're called rhizomes, and they spread out and they overlap with the other nettles. So it's like a little community of nettles, and they all can feel each other. So often what I do is before I come in and pick, I just sit with the nettles and thank the Mother Earth and the nettles for allowing me to come and pick. It's important that when there's wild harvesting that you don't harvest the whole crop that you see in front of you. You only take 30% of what's there, but to allow it to regenerate so that you have it for the next year. It's allowing for there to be a future and to know that generations after you can come and harvest there. It's the original medicine, and it's all around us. Mother Nature takes care of us. We walk outside on a spring day and smell those beautiful fresh buds in the air. It makes me feel humble, small, but alive.
I sort of am a hybrid homesteader and am just sort of doing a little bit of everything here.
Naomi Melnick is a throwback to that earlier generation of homesteaders who did what it took to feed their families with a few acres of land.
We do dairy and meat and vegetables and fruit, eggs, and try and make as much as we can to feed ourselves for as much of the year as we can. So it's 5:45 in the morning and we're taking these birds to slaughter. Today we're just taking 41 birds. We've had a lot of losses in this due to predators, ravens, raccoons. I have to drive them 80 kilometers to have them processed in a licensed facility. We load them at night because they're less stressed out. They're sleeping, and then they're done.
Is this hard for you?
Yeah. It gets simpler as the years go on. It's never easy, but you become accustomed to the pattern, and it stops hurting as much. But it's not easy to choose to end somebody's life, even if it's a chicken. Harder with the bigger livestock, the goats and the pigs, but it's what we do in order to eat meat. And we're committed to doing it for ourselves and for the few other people who get our product. So, yeah.
At what point do they turn from the birds you raised into thinking of them as meat for processing?
The day they show up. You care for them and you treat them as beings, but you don't attach. Ever. You can't do it. You have to think of them as food right from the beginning. They're a crop. We call them a crop. You just can't otherwise. And I'm a meat eater, so I like to know what's going on with what I'm eating. And this is it.
Piggers, where are you? Come on, pigs. Pigs. Where are they? Go get the pigs. These aren't for you. Go get the pigs.
Most days it's really just inspiring to see what you can do when you set your mind to doing it. How supportive the community and my family and even all the critters are. Like, they really thrive in this lifestyle. So, and my kids, to see what they know and see what they, how they connect with the world around them, it's satisfying, because that's what it was all about, was my family.
Yeah.
So, other than my pig hunting dog.
Naomi is just one of Gabriola's current explosion of new young farmers. But making a living from farming is still a long way off for most. One of the biggest barriers is that those with energy and ideas simply don't have the funds to buy their own land. On Gabriola, a new and innovative arrangement evolved to allow this group to create their permaculture farm.
Everything you see here was created by 2 families over the span of about 3 years.
Me and Lisa have had this dream for a long time and haven't had the funds to own the land to do it. It's an interesting partnership between me and Lisa and Stephen and Kaylee, and doing the venture together with our families.
We're getting ready for eggplant or peppers in here.
We're leasing this land off of John Campbell and Mary Lou Campbell.
Hey there. Oh, awesome. Yep, yeah.
And so it's a cooperative relationship that seems to be working out great for both of us.
In spring 2012, Stephen approached John Campbell about farming his recently logged valley bottom land. Paulin and Lisa joined the team in May 2012. John agreed to lease the land at no cost to the 4 young farmers, and Watercliff Permaculture Farm was born.
We are passionate about providing vegetables for the community, education, and permaculture awareness. As a team, we're really passionate about creating a farm that's a dynamic permaculture farm that exists as a system. That means that all the parts work together in order to create something that builds fertility and builds abundance, and it gets more and more productive, more and more fertile over time. So that, in the years to come, maybe even after we've left this place, it will be more fertile than before.
There's lots to do here. Tons to learn.
The workshops are a big part of our long-term vision. The whole educational component that's how we learned all this stuff, was through workshops.
One of Watercliff Farm's workshops in 2014 brought together farmers with casual gardeners to teach a unique permaculture technique called hugelculture. Hugels are giant mounds filled with logs and woody debris. These help conserve water and produce incredible growth in a small space, and they serve as a wind barrier for nearby beds. But even with all this innovation, the farmers still bear incredible risks.
Are you making it as young farmers, like able to provide for yourselves and your families at this point?
The first couple of years is really tight because you're building all the infrastructure, all the fencing, all the beds have to be built, all of the buildings, the outbuildings, like the market stands and the chicken coops and the duck houses and ponds. So all of that has to get built in the first couple of years. But the CSA box program has really made everything possible for us.
Today's box: apples, plums, broccoli, zucchini, cabbage, lettuce, beans. Can't get nothing better than that. That is perfect broccoli.
The farm is not in debt, which is amazing. Like we feel so supported here by our wonderful community.
Oh my goodness. Look at this apple.
Beauteous.
Oh
my God, they're lovely.
So these are John Pierce's apples too, these ones?
This is our partnership with Namaste Farms. So these are John Pierce's trees.
Oh.
And because Stephen works for him, he works off hours and we get the fruit for our box because our trees aren't old enough yet. So collaboration with farmers. Yay. Yeah.
So yeah, thanks to our community, we are making it, and I can see the future that maybe we'll make a living for our families. Right now it's a lifestyle, which is the most important thing. It's like we're here on the land and our babies are growing and our kids are running around, and that's cool. And the goal is to make a living eventually. Yeah.
John Pierce's Namaste Farm takes the concept of land sharing even further than Watercliff. He has made his 22 acres of south-facing land available to the community for a variety of projects. A community garden with individual and collective lots. A grain cooperative plants and harvests heritage grain. Neighbors cut hay. Hikers enjoy access to a public walking trail, and a cherished Garry Oak habitat is protected.
We started as a blackberry patch basically, and we've evolved into a farm that is not only feeding most of our vegetable and fruit needs for ourselves, but also shared by a number of other people with different projects. And it's probably that community aspect that I think is the most unique.
See, the new system of pruning could actually,
what inspired us was trying to figure out how could we use the land more effectively than just, for example, hay. Because it's an agricultural soil, and this is particularly good agricultural soil with particularly good southern exposure, using it for food production is probably the highest and best use. So this is the Commons Namaste allotment gardens, and once we realized that as long as we fenced it and provided water, then it would work. This is the third season of gardening, and there are about 25 people who garden in here in their own 400 square foot allotments. And then back here is what's referred to as the collective garden, so that people can jointly garden together some long-term crops like squash and beans, learn something about gardening. It's been a great project. It's wonderful to look out the window and watch other people working the land. And the other issue is figuring out, as a society on Gabriola, how can we make land available to young farmers? Because property prices are so high, young farmers can't get started without some sort of a leg into the game, so to speak. Well, I really enjoy what I'm doing here. It gives me a reason to live because I'm living with chronic leukemia. Mortality is a significant issue for me, and being able to maintain my energy levels and keep working at this fun job is part of what makes me get up in the morning. Well, I've always been somebody who enjoys the out of doors. That's one reason why I went into geology. Being out in nature is very important to me, and I get much more spiritual satisfaction or support out of being outside. And to use the expression that John Ward Hammond used in a song from Alberta, I'm a member of the Church of the Long Grass in the Presbytery of the Porcupine Hills.
Lawrence Males is another islander whose connection to the land runs deep. Instead of growing food on his acreage, he takes the role of a steward and cultivates its wildness.
This is where the caretaker, the steward of the sanctuary, presently resides.
And that's you.
That's me. I came out to Gabriola, sold my place in Vancouver, and when I walked on this land, it just called to me. I was here when it had been logged about 20 years ago. And I just felt, well, I'll take care of it. It was overgrown with Scotch broom. I'll pull the Scotch broom by hand. I'll dig little ponds by hand and make a wildlife refuge for the small creatures. And that's kind of my gift, my sacred service to the planet. One man doing something for the planet, being a caretaker rather than a taker. I'm not more passionate about the little creatures than I am about the big ones. It's just that most people they're aware of the eagles, the deer, the cougars, but the little things they're not aware of. And so people buy an acre, they cut down the trees, they fill in a little damp spot, and that was major habitat for small creatures. So by drawing attention to the small creatures, it just widens the bandwidth of who we have compassion for. I love it. I love this. This is one of the most beautiful places. Provides more life for the salamanders and the frogs and the birds to drink, of course. And sometimes there's duck and geese down here that just land here. It's our family. That's why this is really important to make this into a permanent, forever wildlife refuge. Gabriola's, wildlife refuge, a sanctuary.
Our old people, when they come together and they talk about the importance of land, they talk about the sacredness of it and how we have to think about why we're here and how we have to look after the land. If we all think about coming together and looking at the land space the way we should be, the sacredness of it, of how to advocate for those who cannot speak, for those who cannot come out to say, this is my space. Why are you doing it? Why are you taking it away from me? And who am I referring to when I'm saying that? I'm referring to the animals. I'm referring it to the waters. Because the trees cannot speak. The animals cannot speak, cannot come up and say, stop. Stop from polluting it. Stop from cutting the trees. Stop. Just for a moment. That's what sacredness means to me. Ha ha in our language is sacred.